Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Corinne Burgermeister from the Social Media Breakfast team. We're so glad to have you with us here today for our event. And we're so excited to be partnering again with Forward Festival. About us, we're a nonprofit networking group that meets the third Wednesday of every month. We host educational events about social media, marketing, and all things digital. To connect with us, you can find us across all social media as SMBMAD. And another great way to connect with us is through our scholarship program. We offer scholarships for professional development, going to conferences and things. You can find that on our website at smbmad.org. Next, I want to show a picture of our board. These are the faces behind the screens who make our events happen and keep things running. So say hello to our board members. They'll be in the chat today on the live stream. Next up, we want to say a big thank you to Hannah, who is rolling off our board. This is her last event as a board member. We want to give her a big thank you. She's been a huge part of our team. She worked a lot managing our website. She also introduced the nonprofit spotlight feature, which we do every month. So we're so grateful for Hannah and all the work she's done. So join me in saying thank you to Hannah in the comments as well. Coming up, please save the date for our next event. Next month, we'll be meeting September 15th. We'll be hosting a panel on influencer marketing. So a panel with a couple of local influencers and content creators. This will be a really great topic, so we hope to see you there for that one as well. For anyone looking to get more involved, we are still looking for a couple of speakers to finish out the 2021 year, and then we're going to start planning for 22 pretty soon too. There's also opportunity to join our team or come on as a sponsor or a nonprofit spotlight, and you can check all that out at smbmad.org. We also have a Facebook group. It's called Social Media Madison Masterminds. There's a couple hundred people. It's a really great place to learn about different jobs in the area or advice and tips, and just a great place to share ideas. So check that out as well. Next, we want to give a big thank you to our sponsors. These are the people who keep our events moving and keep them free for you to attend. So big thank you to all of our sponsors. And I'll just give you a little bit about them. So one of our sponsors, Dream Bank, is run through American Family Insurance. They are a great location that puts on a bunch of educational and networking events, literally dozens every single month. So check out their website and their Facebook page. There's probably some great events for you to attend. Our next sponsor, Powder Keg. Powder Keg is a custom website design firm, and they've been part of the SMBMAD community for a long time. They also built our website. You can reach out to them at powdercakedesign.com for more info. Okay, next I'm gonna toss it over to Hilary for the Forward Fest.
Hello, I'm Hilary. I'm one of the board members for Forward Fest, which is going on right now, and this event is obviously part of it, or maybe not obviously. So really quick, Forward Fest is Wisconsin's largest tech and entrepreneurship festival. This is, I believe, the 11th year, and I really should know that. And it's a community initiated event, meaning all of the events that are hosted by and large come not from the Forward Fest board and organizers, but from community members. So entrepreneurs, business owners, tech folks, educators, innovators, it's a really wide spectrum. There's so many different types of events. The Girl Scouts are hosting one. We have comedians, we have startups. I mean, it's really cool to see the wide breadth of events that happen during Forward Fest. So we still have a couple days left. Definitely recommend checking out the schedule. You can go to forwardfest.org to see everything that's happening, and most of the events are free. So even if you don't have a Forward Pass or haven't, didn't realize it was going on or haven't had a chance to look at the schedule, because I know everyone's super busy, I definitely recommend still going to the website, checking out that schedule and seeing the events that are still happening, and seeing if there are any that spark your interest.
Cool. Thank you, Hilary. We also want to give a small shout out to Goodman Community Center. If we were meeting in person, this is where we would have been. Goodman Community Center is a great place on the east side. They do a lot of events for the community, a lot of different programs for kids to learn and grow. So we thank them for all they do for the Madison area. Last, I'm going to hand it over to Hannah for our nonprofit spotlight.
Morning, everyone. Reach Dane is our nonprofit spotlight for this month. They have been offering services in Dane and Greene County for 51 years. Donations to Reach Dane provide direct funds to secure housing, rent, utilities, food, essential supplies to the families that they serve. They're opening a new location in South Madison, and that will enable them to nearly double the amount of children that they can serve and to allow for full-day programming. The space has an indoor climbing wall, lactation room, large multi-purpose public meeting space, outdoor classroom, and trauma-informed design. In fall 2021, they're opening a new therapeutic classroom at Union Corners on Milwaukee Avenue, and that will provide classes for children who've experienced trauma and extreme stressors that may put them at risk for experiencing achievement gaps. They're also partnering with stakeholders in the Allied neighborhood to increase COVID-19 vaccination rates, which have the lowest vaccination rates in the Madison area. Their goal is to provide door-to-door direct educational outreach, health supports, and resources to encourage vaccinations for the residents that are rooted in trust and removing barriers. You can follow them on social media. The tags are up on our slide here, and you can also sign up for their e-newsletter. And I just wanted to say thank you. It's my last event as a board member, and I highly encourage you to join the board if you are interested in kind of giving back to this organization. So I'll turn it back over to Corinne.
Cool. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, time for our show. So today we again are so proud to be partnering with Forward Fest for this event. We're going to talk about 10 ways to improve your company's relationship with tech with Hilary Stohs-Krause. Tell you a little bit about her. Hilary Stohs-Krause is co-owner and senior developer at 10 Forward Consulting, a custom web and mobile development company based in Madison. In her free time, Hilary serves on the board for Forward Fest and is an organizer for the Madison Women in Tech community group. She loves chatting about the intersection of tech, entrepreneurship, and social justice. So please join me in welcoming Hilary. Thank you. And I think you might be on mute still, but it's looking good.
There we go. Yeah. I was saying earlier to the board that I moved on Saturday, so my head and my apartment are a bit of a jumble right now, but we'll get through it. Hi, thanks for having me. Super excited. I have been in tech for about 6 or 7 years now, and we work with a lot of different types of businesses at 10 Forward, and I would mention something that we did at 10 Forward, and clients sometimes were like, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, you don't do that? So that's kind of the impetus for this talk, and I hope that y'all get something out of it. So yeah, I'm Hilary Stohs-Krause. I'm with 10 Forward Consulting. You can find us at 10forward.consulting. And I came to tech as a second career. So hopefully none of this will be too like techie for folks, because I'm also a real person, if you will. All right, so what are we gonna talk about today? We're gonna look at kind of 4 main categories. We're gonna look at security, longevity, efficiency, and marketing. And I'm gonna ask a lot of questions, so please make ample use of the Facebook comments to answer those questions for me. And I wanna point out before I get started, a couple of quick things. So I have a lot of information to go over, so I'm gonna go kind of fast, but I'm happy to share the slides with anyone at the end if anyone was like, I did not catch all that information about passwords or about security. It's totally fine. And I also want to point out the second thing is that, depending on how tech savvy you or your company are, you might already be doing a lot of the things I'm going to talk about. You might be doing maybe half of them, you might be doing none of them, and that's totally fine. Like, I'm not here to shame anyone for not having better passwords or a backup plan. You know, as we'll probably see in the comments, like, you're not alone if you haven't done something or are doing maybe a practice that isn't necessarily the best. So just looking to share some friendly tips and tricks, and hopefully everybody can walk away with some new insight. So first, we're going to talk about security, because safety is important. And I have my first poll for everyone. Would you say that your company uses a password manager, encourages two-factor authentication, does both, or does neither? If you want to just respond with the appropriate letter in the Facebook chat, and I'll give people about a minute or so to quickly do that. Just want to kind of see where y'all are at with your businesses. All right, first one I see is a C. Love it. Another C and a B. Awesome. It was a first D. Yes. Well, that's true at a lot of places, as we will soon see. Awesome. All right. Looks like C's and B's are the main one, which is interesting to me. Cool. Yeah, keep answering. This is great. All right, we're going to go forward. So, second one, what is the single most important factor for strong passwords? So there are various aspects that can affect password strength and security, but what do you think is the most important one? And I'll give people some time to answer that new question too. Okay, someone suggested length. 2 for length. I know this one's not multiple choice, so it's a little, I'm asking more of your brain power this morning. Okay, randomization, special characters, uniqueness. Okay, I think we've hit all of the different ones, mix of numbers and letters. Okay, yeah, keep going. Thank you. All right, so first I'm going to scare all of you, because honestly, as someone who does this for a living, I am alarmed sometimes when I hear about even like really smart people that I would consider to be tech savvy, some of the ways that they approach passwords. So the goal of this point is to like scare all of you too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is not like a children's song. It is the most common password found in data breaches. 33, like more than 33% of users repeat 2 or 3 passwords for everything. And I used to do this too, right? Again, we're not shaming people, because I was definitely this person in the past. And 42% of organizations rely on sticky notes to manage passwords. And this like honestly like makes my heart clench. So how can we make this better, right? Password managers. So interestingly enough, it seemed like we did have some C's, which was both. So some people whose company encourages 2FA, two-factor authentication, and password managers, but we had a lot fewer people who just had a password manager. And we had a lot of folks who just did 2FA. So I'm glad that I'm going to talk about this. First of all, why do we need a password manager, right? And what different kinds are there? So there's the in-browser password manager. You know, when you sign up for a new account and your browser says, hey, do you want me to save this password? And you're like, yes, that's so convenient. And it is. It's also not super safe. So a lot of browsers will save your login information unencrypted on your computer. So if someone gets your laptop and knows where to look, they can find your passwords for that browser. Another good, so whereas password managers, right, store everything encrypted, where it's stored kind of depends on which one you're using, whether it's an encrypted on your device or encrypted on the cloud, but it's encrypted, which is like the big thing there. They also will suggest strong passwords for you. So I'm one of those weirdos who really likes to come up with my own passwords. But you know, if you just want to know, hey, I want a secure password, I don't really care what it is, because again, you don't need to remember it, right? It's in your password manager, then it'll help you do that. It's easy to share across teams. So this is another big one. Remember that sticky note horrifying statistic? If you have multiple folks using the same password, so for example, at 10 Forward, we have different testing logins for all of the software we write. And instead of every single person having to have a different testing login, we just have a shared vault, is what they call them, in 1Password, which is what we use, where everyone who needs to do testing for that product can go in and get all of the logins. If you're traveling, this is another big one. So if you're the person at your company who is in charge of X, and you're going to take a 2-week vacation when the pandemic's over, it makes it really easy for someone else to kind of take on some of your responsibilities while you're gone and have access to the things that they need. Helps with onboarding and offboarding. So this is a big one too. You know, your first day, you're often setting up a whole bunch of different accounts. And so this way, there's a place to put all of those at once that's organized. And then also when someone does leave your organization, you just revoke their access to their password manager account. And then it's a great way to sort of like close off access to all those accounts without having to go to each one individually at the beginning. And there are free options, which is great. So, you know, this is something like I have been getting on my mom's case for forever, because she's someone who has a printed list of her passwords in her computer desk drawer. And I just, you know, a lot of us are there, but as a tech person, like, that's just like, oh, can we not though? There are free versions. I will pay for it for you. So I really, really recommend a password manager. 1Password, like I said, is the one we use at 10 Forward, and that's probably my favorite. It has a really great, has really great browser plugins. It's easy to use. It's easy to share across teams. It's $4 per user per month for a business account, at least when I checked a couple weeks ago. Free ones include LastPass, Bitwarden. And, you know, if you don't do anything else, like if you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll get a password manager, it kind of seems like a lot of work, or like our budget is pretty thin, you know, stretched pretty thin right now. The one thing I would say is to keep your email password unique, because once someone with malicious intent can get into your email, they can get into everything, right? Because they can just reset your password on all your accounts through your email. So if nothing else, make sure that you are not repeating your email password. All right, so what most impacts password strength? It looked like we had kind of randomization, uniqueness, like the mix of numbers and letters is kind of all the same. That was the one that seems to have won out. But actually, it's length. So the first two folks who said that, you were correct. Again, all of these aspects impact password security, but the number one factor is length. I like to do a long string of short words. So I will literally sit around the room and be like, cabinet, box, cat, oven, bag, you know. But again, you can just have your password manager suggest one for you. You can throw some numbers or symbols in, because complexity is also a factor. The reason why length is the biggest one is because a longer password takes longer to crack it, right? And it requires more computational resources. It is just not worth their time, especially when so many other people are using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as their password, right? It's just not worth their time. This is why I hate it when websites restrict your password length, because you are literally forcing me to be insecure. Like, why? The data storage for a website is minuscule, between like a 12-character password and a 24-character password. So if you ever have software built, or if you require a website for or a password for your website or anything like that, let the people have long passwords. All right, 2FA. It sounds like a lot of folks are using 2FA, which is awesome. So anyone who doesn't know, 2FA is two-factor authentication. It basically requires an extra step for login. So it could be a code sent by email. It could be a code sent by text. It could be a code via an authenticator app that you have on your phone. And 2FA can sometimes be annoying, right? It's like, you're like, okay, I got my email, my password. I'm like, oh, I gotta go get that code. it's one more thing to check. But depending on, again, if you use a password manager, you can actually integrate your 2FA with your password manager. And so then you're still going to only one place. But anyone trying to guess at your email or your, like a lot of people know our emails, but anyone trying to guess at your password, they still need that extra step to be able to log in, which is that code. Storage and backups.
Hey, bro, got your message. Where are you?
Under the table.
Why are you hiding? Should I hide too? What's going on?
I was supposed to copy all the department files onto a thumb drive and it kept freezing and I got annoyed and I don't know what happened, but all the files are gone on every computer. They're all gone. Babe, they're all gone.
Okay, calm down. First of all, you did the right thing by hiding under this table.
So I don't know if anyone else feels like this sometimes. This is definitely something that, oh, went too far. No, I didn't. Okay. This is definitely something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily anticipate. Is what happens when you delete every single file off every single computer. So another quick poll. Does your company have a process for backing up your data? Have procedures in place in case of an emergency to make sure that your data is maintained? Do they do both or do they do neither? I'll give people a second to comment in the chat. So yes, that was from Parks and Recreation, the TV show, if anyone hasn't seen it. Excellent show, highly recommend. Ooh, lots of C's. I love it. A for sure, maybe C. Okay, well, we'll just kind of breeze through this section then, because y'all appear to be crushing it. That's awesome. Okay, so storage and backups. So maybe for those who have them, you might be like, yeah, and they're kind of obnoxious and they're really detailed, or, they make us run like a simulation every quarter. But downtime is really, really expensive. It's estimated at $137 to $427 per minute. And that is for small companies. So if you're at a bigger corporation, I mean, it can go into the thousands per minute. So how to craft a data backup plan. So if you don't have one, looks like most of the people who responded do, but if you don't, things to think about, or even if you do have one, maybe these are things that aren't, maybe not all of these are necessarily included in yours. So thinking about what is to be backed up regularly versus once in a while, who needs access to backups. This is something that we've come across before where an organization has really good backups and no one can get to them, or one person can, and again, they're on that 2-week vacation. And so it's not accessible when people need it. Can it be stored locally on the cloud or both? And then do you have to back up any sensitive data? So this is something too that is good to think about if it's not already part of your procedures, is like, do you have any identifying information or sensitive information, especially if it's something that's government regulated like HIPAA or for minors or things like that. If you don't have a backup like procedure in place, lots of backup providers will provide a free consultation. So, all right, what happens if, and so I think a lot of folks are like, oh, well, the internet's not going to go down, like nothing is stored on servers in my building. So like what could even impact it? And there's a lot, right? So power outage, pandemic, fire, flooding, hacking and phishing. This is one I think a lot of people don't think about when they think about data security, because it's like, it's not as flashy, it doesn't get as much attention, anymore as it used to, but it's still happening. In fact, data breaches increased from hacking by 67% from 2014 to 2019. So this is still a problem and it's getting worse. So definitely something to be paying attention to. And a lot of this comes down to just like training staff, right? On how to identify malicious emails, when and when not to give their password, how to tell if URL, is legit or not, things like that. And again, it's not just about your physical space if you have one, but there have been, it was not that long ago that I think CloudFront, which is like a content delivery network, went down. And so anyone using CloudFront suddenly, like, none of their CSS was loading and their sites looked really weird. And this was like all over. You know, and then something else too is if you have an in-house tech team that's managing your stuff, you know, making sure that if you're on whatever server provider service you're using, if you're using one like AWS, Amazon Web Services, making sure that you have more servers than you need and that it's automatically distributing among them. So if one goes down for whatever reason, fire, flooding, you know, whatever, there's a backup server that will just keep running and should do it seamlessly. Okay, so we talked about some of the stuff that's gonna happen. You know, what are some other ways to be prepared? So again, we talked about those accessible and accurate backups, right? It doesn't do any good if your last backup was from a year ago and you just onboarded like 3 major clients and suddenly all of their data is gone. You can sign up for data breach alerts. This is for personal accounts, but if you have a work, or it's for individual accounts, I should say. But if you have a work account through, you know, with like Canva or anything like that, like, it's really good to know as soon as possible that Canva is in breach so you can change your password other places, especially if you're one of those folks who repeats passwords. So haveibeenpwned.com. It'll also tell you all of the existing data breaches that you have likely been a part of. Password manager, already talked about that. And one thing I want to say about this real quick is that we think we're really good at preparation and we're actually terrible at it. So 78% of people see the value in having an emergency kit for natural disasters, which are like, great, yes, reasonable. Also, I'm a little concerned about the 22% who don't think it's important to have an emergency kit on hand, but that's another story. Of those 78% of people, however, the number of those who have actually made any effort to create such a kit, only 26%. So we know what we need to do, you know, same with my mom and the password manager, like, yeah, I know I need to get one, I'll get to it. We're really good at not doing things that we should. So just something to keep in mind. And then a responsibility matrix, right? So who's the point person for your tech needs during an emergency? Maybe you have all these good procedures, you have all the backups, but like, who takes charge when this happens? How can they be reached if it happens in the middle of the night? What steps can individuals take on their own versus having to wait for direction from a manager or supervisor, things like that. All right, now we're moving on to longevity, which is mostly like, how do you keep your equipment running? And this is what I like to call the like, fine, I'll do it section. So more polls. First, how often, and be honest, you know, safe space. How often do you wait between being prompted to make some kind of update and actually doing the update? And then number 2, what do you think is the best way to preserve the battery life of your laptop? And again, there are, as with password strength, there are multiple factors that can go into battery life, but what do you think is kind of the biggest way? The password manager recommendation. So, I've got a cat who decided to come hang out. Working from home, woo! Password manager recommendation. So we use 1Password at work. I really like that one. I believe if you get a business account, your staff can also have personal accounts for free included, I'm pretty sure. And then LastPass and Bitwarden are 2 free versions or freemium that people really like. And I think Bitwarden is it open, or it's not open source? It's I don't remember. There's something about it that tech nerds really like. So yes, auto updates, they are a blessing. Unless it's a new version of the Mac operating system, which still has a lot of bugs in it because that's sort of how they work. And suddenly you can't access some of your files because they haven't patched it yet. So we'll get to that in a second. Update within the hour, love it. Okay, unplug when fully charged for the battery. So kind of getting it all the way up and letting it down charge again. Gonna wait a few more minutes, get some more responses. And maybe y'all don't know, you know, I honestly had to research what is the best way to preserve battery life because I thought that I knew, or by which I mean I had heard things, but I had no idea if it was actually accurate. Okay, shutting down the laptop completely for the battery. And a few days to a week for updates, still good. Keep programs running in the background to a minimum. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Also, I feel like I've just got my blinds just giving me like sparkle face. Don't know. Yeah, right. Like I said, even I had to look up some of this stuff because I was like, I'm not actually sure what's real and what's like urban legend. So what is real? First, looking at updates, do we prioritize them? Honestly, with this crowd, it looks like we do. So that's great. If you don't, here's why you should, or if you do, but you're kind of annoyed by having to do it, even with auto updates, you know, I'm going to make you feel better about it, hopefully. Fixes software bugs, right? It includes patch. I was just talking about Mac OS. It includes patches to known bugs. It'll add or enhance existing features. And so Zoom for a long time, it wouldn't tell you when there was a new update. You had to actually go check yourself. And I remember one time being, I don't know, maybe like 2 major versions off, like I'm like really behind. And then someone on my team updated and was like, whoa, look at all these new features in Zoom. Because I also hadn't updated in a while. So then I did. And it was just really cool. I was like, man, I wish I would have had these sooner. She would have just told me that I needed to update. I would have done it. Removing files that you don't need anymore. So as you know, software changes, so whether that's your operating system or, you know, desktop applications, you know, there's just files that they don't use anymore or that are temporary, and doing regular updates can get rid of those files and help keep your machine clean and running smoothly. Security issues, so this is a huge one. Compatibility updates, right? Like if your software version gets too old, certain programs just won't work on anymore. This is especially true for like our phones. And then performance. It'll just run faster. Everything will just run faster, hopefully. Again, a major exception to this for me is big operating system overhauls. So anytime that, like I said, when Mac comes out with an OS, I like to wait a few months so they can work out the most obvious bugs. Like I am not an early adopter for that kind of thing. I do not want to deal with that. Someone else can gallantly download it the first day and find everything wrong with it and report it. I'm going to wait a few months. For the big ones, for security stuff, I do it right away. All right, restarting our computers. I think I didn't make a poll for this, but if people want to put in the chat, like how often do you restart your computer? Just curious to see, but I'll keep going while you do that. So the joke, right, is if something's wrong, it's like turn it off and on, or blow in the cartridge. But turning it off and on actually does work. It's science, and I'm going to show you all why. So flushes your memory. This can help with things like that spinning color wheel of death. Again, if you're on a Mac, if your web pages are loading slowly, weakly, love it. You know, if your programs are taking longer than normal to open, all of that often is because you've run out of working memory. And so like restarting your computer is kind of, I think of it kind of as like doing laundry. So it doesn't fundamentally change your garment when you wash it, but it sort of resets it to its original fit if it was kind of stretched out, or its original color if it got dirty. And so during the reboot process, the same thing is happening. All of the computer's logic is reset, not often enough. Yes, you know, this is a little bit of me preaching to the choir here, or not preaching to the choir, being, what's the phrase I want? I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite here. Pot kettle black, that's what it is. A little bit of pot kettle black. We remind everyone to do what we call Restart Monday. And as programmers, we actually have kind of different scripts of things we run that go above and beyond just a standard restart to make sure that everything is up to date and working properly for the work that we need to do. But I am someone with an obscene amount of tabs. Like, how many do I have right now? I have 95 Chrome tabs open in one window, and I have 2 different Chrome windows. And I have, of course, a plugin that saves them for me, you know, called Session Buddy. But I just, man, it just feels like a lot of work sometimes to restart a computer, especially, you know, for me, where I have so many different programs opening that I'm using regularly. But it really is worth it. So why else does it work? Holds memory leaks. So programs that didn't shut down correctly often can still secretly use memory in the background. And when you run out of that working memory, yes, another tab fiend. When you run out of that working memory, that like RAM, that's when you start to notice those issues with like random access memories, what RAMs for. That's when you start to notice issues with programs operating more slowly and things like that. It can solve internet and Bluetooth connection issues. And if I'm being totally honest, this is one of the main reasons I restart my computer. And then sometimes it's necessary to implement those updates, right? So it doesn't only good to install all the updates and then never restart your computer so that they actually take effect. I see some folks are shocked by my tabs. They're all in a specific order. It's actually very organized to me. So maintenance, computers are expensive, phones are expensive. We want them to last as long as possible, right? Especially for a business. And so what are some ways that we can kind of do our due diligence maintenance to ensure that we get the most longevity out of those machines? Battery, I think, is a big one, especially for laptops, right? If you're on the go, if you're traveling, like you want to have long battery life. No one likes to be changed to their power cord. So I think we didn't have a ton of responses about the battery. Oh yeah, shut down when completely, unplug when fully charged. The actual biggest thing is temperature regulation. So one thing that I do is I have one of those lap-sized like cooling fan holder things. As I'm staring at it, I'm realizing I'm not entirely sure what it's called. But basically it's, like a plastic piece that has little fans inside and your laptop sits on top and you can plug it into your laptop to power the fans. I pretty much always have that plugged in. So I don't right now because I don't want the sound of the fan to come through the talk, but pretty much always have that plugged in because temperature regulation is the best way to keep it going. And you might think, oh, well, my work gets me a new laptop every 2 years. It doesn't really matter. When something goes wrong, though, it can really mess with your whole day, right? Like taking your laptop in to get it repaired can take a few days and you have to use an old one that's not set up the way you like. And, and no one likes that. So I think tech and software are kind of both like a car. If you never change the oil, you don't replace the battery often enough, and you ignore when your tire pressure is low, like you can keep going for a long time, but eventually you're going to start having problems. Someone asked if restart is the same as shutdown for flushing out memory. Yes. So a restart is basically just shutting down and turning on immediately. But if you shut down completely, it'll do the same thing. All right. Another thing that's going to keep your computer running well is making sure that you have at least 15% free space on your computer. And so again, some of this comes down to like performance, but it's also without that free space, your machine, laptop or desktop, your machine has to work a lot harder because it's kind of like it's just too full. Think about like when we like Thanksgiving or there's like a dessert potluck at work, which we've never done. Now I really want to because that sounds amazing. But you eat too much and you're feeling pretty full and you're just kind of sluggish. You don't really want to do anything. You kind of want to take a nap. Computers are kind of the same way. And then again, updates can also play a factor in maintenance. So efficiency, how are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing okay. So tech and communication, more polls. First, how often do you feel completely caught up on your email? And then the second, how do you feel when talking to tech people? So maybe pick one word that kind of describes how you feel when you have to talk to someone who knows more about tech than you do, especially if you need their help. Like how do you feel when you're encounter those kind of situations? Never, yeah. I'll just give people a minute. I'm glad that there are a couple of nevers because y'all were so on top of some of the rest of these that I was like, wow, I don't have anything to teach them, but. Okay, talking with tech folks, I see different worlds, language, and culture. Oh, I heart tech. We heart you too. All right, let's get a couple more folks. Answer. Oh, stupid. Oh, that's unfortunate. I mean, it's not super surprising, but it's unfortunate. I hate when they communicate in jargon. Yes. Competent but not confident. Oh, I like that. I love the specificity that y'all are giving me here. Oh, comfortable because I'm in a tech-based profession. Okay. Oh, I feel like a child clueless. I'm sorry. Well, we're gonna, for those who are kind of like, I'm not always super confident, or like, I really don't feel great when I have those interactions. Hopefully I can help to make those feel better. So first we're gonna look at email. So if folks wanna just like put a thumbs up in the chat if they have heard of the concept of inbox zero. I am gonna go straight into explaining it, but I'm just curious how many people are familiar with that. So inbox zero is this idea that emails should be treated like a to-do list in a nutshell. And when we treat it that way, it inherently removes some of the urgency of emails. Okay, we got a thumbs. So someone's heard of inbox zero. I feel like this is a philosophy that I don't know if it came from tech people, but I have found that it's very prominent within tech circles. And so at 10 Forward, we have like a whole wiki page about inbox zero. We talk about it when we onboard people. It's kind of baked into our culture, and we expect that everyone will be at inbox zero every day, which literally means that you have 0 emails in your inbox at least once a day. And for those who are like, I am never caught up on email, I might be blowing your mind right now. But hear me out. So there are, of course, exceptions, right, to this idea that email is not urgent. If it's an emergency, right, you might get an urgent email, but honestly, more likely, if it's an actual emergency, if something is actually urgent, it has to be done right now and interrupt everything else you're doing, you'll get a phone call, right? Or someone will physically come to your desk if you're in an office. The majority of email, by definition, as an asynchronous form of communication, is not urgent, right? Or someone will Slack you, like if your website goes down, right? Someone probably won't email you. They will text you, they will Slack you, they will try to get in touch with you as quickly as possible. And that's usually not with email. When we reframe those individual messages as tasks or to-dos, it kind of gives us permission to prioritize it and to delegate. So how do we do that? There are kind of 3 main ways to categorize an email. So I have to do something before I can archive this, right? This requires action on my part. Maybe that action is just a reply. So that's the other option. It's like, okay, first option, I have to do something. So I have to put together a presentation and send it, or I have to check on something. Maybe I just need to send a reply that's like, hey, thanks for the info, got it. Send that email on its way. And sometimes you just have to read it. You don't have to do anything, right? You just have to read it. Maybe it's an email that is from your healthcare provider, and they're just letting you know that, like, yes, we are still covering, COVID tests. Cool. I read it, filed it away in my brain, send the email on its way. So again, the goal is inbox zero once a day. And when it comes to like doing something for that first one, like email requires that I do something before I archive it. Often doing something is just simply delegating it to someone else. So whether that's another person or another system, it's just forwarding it and saying, hey, can you take care of this? Or forwarding it to, a system that you have that will automatically turn it into like a support ticket or a calendar invite or something like that. And so if you're someone who, people are flabbergasted when I share my screens in meetings and I have all those tabs. I am flabbergasted when someone shares their screen and they have like 2,000 unread emails. Like, that just feels like so much brain clutter, right? And I feel like looking at that every day would stress me out, although I know that tabs do that for other people. So to each their own. But you know, my tabs really just impact me. If you aren't cut up on your email, like that can have real implications for your business and for your team. And so if you're one of those people, like the hard part with going to inbox zero is starting, because you have to get to a clean inbox before you can do this regularly. However, once you're there, it's really pretty easy to keep up with. So I usually check my email, you know, after morning meetings and kind of go through and get to approximately inbox zero. I'm more like inbox 10, but that's very manageable, right? I can see all the emails on one screen, and that's kind of the big idea. And then I'll do it again in the afternoon. And then because I'm a business owner, which I assume a lot of folks here might be too, or managers or supervisors, you know, I also check it first thing before bed. I don't usually take any action on it because I don't want clients seeing that I'm like sending them emails at, you know, midnight. But it just kind of clears my head out. And then I feel like, okay, well, I'm set for tomorrow morning. I've kind of got my priorities figured out based on maybe some emails that I got in the evening. And I'm good to go. And it's also really nice to come to work in the morning and not have like a slog of brand new emails that you didn't get to the day before. Filters, yes, that's a good one. I subscribe to a lot due to influx of news, PR. Yes, I think filters are a big one there. And I think just kind of dedicating, and I know Josh, who's on the board for Social Media Breakfast, has talked about like just having dedicate like a short period of time dedicated each day to like working on social media posts, right? Instead of feeling like you have to spend all this time doing it, you know, like, oh, I need 4 hours to plan it for the next month. It's like, do like 15 minutes every day. I think the same can be true for email, right? Okay, like I've got 20 minutes. I'm just going to read through my news and PR filter and kind of clear that out. I have all emails checked at one time a day, but I leave them in my inbox. Okay, putting them in a folder works too. Yeah, I like to archive because then it's accessible in search, but it gets it out of the inbox. So like when I look at the inbox, I can see very accurately, like, what do I actually need to pay attention to? You know, what do I need to address? Does unsubscribe really work? I wonder this sometimes too. And I also do not for the life of me understand why when you click unsubscribe, sometimes it's like, oh, it might take 24 to 48 hours for this process. Why? It's not hard. It's deleting a record from a database. But I think most of the time that's if they're using something like Constant Contact or MailChimp. And so it has to go through this third party to happen. But like, yeah, that annoys me. Or I'm like, you're emailing me every day. Why do I have to sit here for 2 more days when I've already told you I don't want it? As an aside. All right, how to talk tech. So hot tips that some of y'all have been waiting for. How do we feel? So we saw kind of a range of responses in the chat, right? From comfortable, you know, competent but not confident, to like, I feel like a child, or I feel like I'm not as smart, you know, like they make me feel like I'm not smart, which is a real shame. So I think a lot of reasons we talk to tech folks are because something isn't working, right? So whether that's IT, you know, like, hey, I can't log into my computer, or like it's not giving me access to shared files, things like that. Or if it's with software, it's like, hey, I'm trying to reschedule this event and like it keeps giving me an error screen, something like that. So a lot of times when we need to talk to tech people, it's because something went wrong. And so we're sort of already primed to not be in a great mood, or to be frustrated or anxious. So when we're letting someone know, whether it's, again, an internal person or with a vendor, that, hey, like something's broken and it's not working, how can we make that a smoother process? So sending the steps to reproduce is a big one. And sometimes it's, you know, depending on what the bug or issue is, this isn't as important, right? You know, it might even be something as simple as just like, I tried to log into my work computer and couldn't, right? I opened my computer, I clicked the button to log in, I put in my email and password. And then what did I expect to happen? I expected that I'll be able to log in the way that I do every day. What actually happened? Well, I saw a specific error that said like code 324, you know, too many login attempts can, you know, your account has been locked, whatever. So kind of these 3 things, steps reproduce. So what did I try? What did I think should happen, or what normally happens? And then what actually happened? That's like a gold mine for someone trying to help you. Not only does that kind of start off the conversation on a good foot where you're like, hey, I have clearly thought about this. I am trying to help you, help me, but it also ensures that your problem gets taken care of much more quickly, because these are the questions I'm going to ask you before I do anything, again, depending on the issue. So if you can just send me all that information ahead of time, like with like chef's kiss, like, oh, like I am so excited to help you. And that might bump your issue ahead of the line, because again, we don't have to do that back and forth where I try and get this information from you, or we don't have the situation where I'm misunderstanding what your actual issue is and I fix some, the wrong thing. So yeah, steps to reproduce, expected behavior, actual behavior. Some additional tips. Ask when you don't understand. So somebody mentioned that jargon can really be an issue. And there are definitely bad apples in tech, as there are in any industry. And I think the sort of glamorization of people in tech, like ninjas and rock stars, like definitely doesn't help with some folks' ego and like sense of superiority in tech. But I do hope that they're not the norm. So if you don't understand, just ask, like, hey, you're using this phrase, can you just remind me what that means? Or like, how is that related to what we're doing here? Have them send you a written summary afterwards. So especially if you're having a conversation with someone, maybe in your office, and they're like, oh yeah, it's because of this, and you got to do this. And, if you just do it in this order, then everything will work. When we're in the moment like that, like a lot of times we're just focused on how do I fix it right now? And we don't necessarily retain that for like, especially if something we're going to have to repeat multiple times. So ask them to send you a written summary. And then also if you're someone who processes more easily with, things that are written, like that can be really helpful in those situations too. And that way you have a record of it. You can also write things down yourself, right? That way you're doing it in your words. And if you write it down yourself, then you can add it to internal documentation for your company so that when someone else has that same problem, like, oh yeah, like our network has this quirk where you have to do this. Like if you see this error, just do this one thing and it'll go away, right? Writing that down and making it accessible to everyone else at the company means that everyone else can then fix it themselves and feel more empowered and not have to even go to the tech people. And if you have one of those folks who like deliberately or not is making you feel foolish for either asking questions or wanting to know more about why something works, like that's not okay. You wouldn't accept that from someone in your department. Hopefully, you shouldn't accept it from someone who's in tech. So that to me is kind of a sign that maybe it's time to switch to a different vendor or vendor, rep or, contractor, whatever. Like they shouldn't be doing that. Everyone uses tech. No tech person knows everything. Like we all bring different things to the table and we should all be helping each other. And then this is the last one, suggest things you'd like to see changed. So, we have some products that we built at 10 Forward that we sell B2B, and most of the new features for those products come from our existing clients because we want to build something they continue to use and pay for. And so the best way to do that is just like take suggestions that they make for, oh, it'd be really great if it could do this, or, I find that this takes longer than I'd like. Can we streamline that? We're going to do that because that is a direct boon to our business, right? And so the same is true for you. If you're using software with vendors and there's something that isn't working right, or you wish something was different, just suggest it. Because the worst that happens is they say like, oh yeah, we'll put it in the pipeline and maybe we'll get to it in like 2 years. The best thing that happens is they're like, you're the fourth person to bring that up this week. I'm going to go ahead and push this to the front of the line. All right. And then I have a little section on marketing, otherwise known as programmers are lazy, and you can too. So we talk a lot about that programmers are like, and I'm, obviously painting with a broad brush, but that programmers are like a good kind of lazy. So, I have, like a client wants a certain export of data and they keep asking for it. Like, I'm just going to write a feature so they can click a button and do it themselves, even though they didn't ask for it, because I'm tired of like running the same thing every day. So I'm just going to automate it. So yeah, automation over effort. It's kind of how I would sum up the good kind of lazy. You'd rather spend 2 hours writing a script that can be used over and over than spend 20 minutes time after time doing it manually. So how do we do that, right? So for social media, I think, and a lot of you might be, it seems like y'all are smart cookies, so a lot of you might be doing this stuff already, but as someone who is not a social media expert and often finds myself needing to engage with 10 Forward social media, like something that's been really helpful for me is just using templates, the same way that I would for code that I'm writing. to use a template, plug in the text, plug in the image, have a Photoshop file where I can just change it out and get it going. There are a ton of different automation systems for social media that I'm sure some of y'all use, but maybe some of you don't. So Hootsuite, TweetDeck, Social Pilot, there's so many, but this is a great way to, again, kind of automate some of that manual effort. Digital reminders. I have digital reminders for literally everything. We use Slack at 10 Forward, and I am constantly setting Slack bot reminders like, hey, remind me in 20 minutes to do this, or remind me next week to do this, as well as annual reminders. So I have reminders set up for all of our employees' work anniversaries and their birthdays, as well as some holidays that we like to holidays that we like to celebrate as a company, including Pi Day and Ada Lovelace's birthday, who was considered to be the world's first programmer. And the good thing about digital reminders too, and being able to schedule things in advance, right, is it removes that cognitive load. And that's something that I think programmers do a lot, because coding kind of uses all of your brain when you're doing it. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of the work that y'all do too, right? It is like, it uses you to do it well, you really have to be like honed in and focused and using your full brain. And so kind of like with Inbox Zero, anything you can like offload from your brain to reduce that cognitive load is like awesome. So just have your to-do list of choice, or to-do list app of choice, like track everything for you. And then rethink what's interesting. So this is something that I find a lot in tech is, when you're in an industry, everything can start to feel sort of obvious or normal or boring because you do it every day and you work with other people who do it every day and you go to, meetups where other people do the same thing. But everyday details that seem kind of mundane to you are fascinating to others. And I find this is especially true in tech. Like there are so many misconceptions about what it means to be in tech. And I think that everyone knows what it means to be a programmer, but I find, time and time again that people really don't, and they're interested in it. And so kind of use that, like you don't have to always have something new and shiny to talk about. You could just talk about everyday things at your company, because that honestly is probably more interesting to folks than we might realize. And then real quick, gonna go through this. So I was asked to include some information about like website maintenance and things like that. And so I just have some quick general suggestions for brochure sites, which 10 Forward builds a ton of. Update content regularly. So this doesn't have to be like overhaul the website or add new pages, just changing out photos so that they're more up to date. Having a blog or sharing news articles or something like this is a great way. And that's good for SEO too for the site, because then, because new content is something that the search engine algorithms look for when they're evaluating like whether or not a site is worthy, is like, is this accurate and up to date? And new content is a way that shows, yes, this is currently being maintained and this is, has legitimate information that should push us to the top. We are drawn first to faces when we look at a website, and then to plain text. So a lot of our clients will sometimes say, oh, we want to add more images to the design. And I'm like, well, we don't need them though. And a lot of times they actually can detract, right? They can either look like ads, especially if it's, stock photos, right? Our brain can tell very quickly when something is a stock photo versus like an authentic photo of the actual company or your clients or your work. And that hurts credibility and it hurts authenticity. And you just, a lot of times, like you don't need to add a photo just to have a photo, because we don't care. We're actually really good at plain text. And I have, if you're interested in the basics of UX and things like that, I actually have a whole talk there's video online. If you just Google it, it's called How to Make Your Website Not Ugly. And I just talked through a bunch of these sort of very simple ways to make web content more engaging. And then keeping your platform up to date. So especially if you're using something like WordPress, which has a lot of plugins, keep everything up to date, because there are, you don't want security issues. You don't want people to exploit vulnerabilities and take your site down or put, a bunch of pictures of corgis on it or something. So just making sure that whatever platform you're using for your brochure site, that you do keep it up to date as best as possible. All right, it is 9. I am done. So I said a lot of things. If anyone has any questions, or you just want to chat about tech, or anything really, I'm super extroverted. I love to talk to people. Yeah, hit me up, hilarysk@10forward.consulting. And then I have some citations, but otherwise, yeah, that's what I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. That was so good. Lots of info in there. I think one thing that I have been neglecting is getting a password manager. So I think that'll be first on my list. But I was wondering if after listening to that, people are going to go home. What do you think is the first thing they should do today if they had to pick from all your tips? Like, what's your
Password manager,
you think? Yeah.
especially because it seems like a lot of y'all aren't using one. And I get it, it's another thing to manage, it's another subscription. If you're a big organization, it can be a fair amount of money, but not nearly as much money as getting hacked and having downtime or having to explain to your customers that their data was accessed by a third party. So yeah, and I've been using we provide, the password manager through 10 Forward. I did not have one before that. So for the last, 6 years, I've had a password manager and I'm never going back. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I love what you were saying too, just to like automate things and get them out of your head. So that is an obvious one to get all those passwords out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a couple other questions we had. One person said, in regards to tabs, do you have a tab manager recommendation?
I don't. I've tried a couple and they didn't really work with my brain. I guess it's kind of a tab manager though. I do use, let me look up what the name of it is. The Great Suspender. But in true tech fashion, I actually use a forked version of the Great Suspender because the original it's a Chrome plugin. It might be on IE and Safari and Firefox as well. I'm not sure because I use Chrome, but if you use Chrome, the tab suspender is amazing. It also helps with that memory issue because it basically suspends a tab if you haven't used it in a certain amount of time. So you can set it. So whether it's 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, and then you just click a button to reload it when you actually do want to engage with it again. But anyway, the plugin was like bought by a third party who introduced some security vulnerabilities. So then someone else forked the code and rolled back those changes, and then you can install it locally. So if you're interested in using Tab Suspender, email me and I'll kind of walk you through how to set it up because it's a little more technical, but that's probably one of my favorite plugins of all time. So
cool. Thank you. Someone else says, regarding inbox zero, there needs to be more discussion for etiquette on it. The people in his organization don't understand the urgency difference between Teams and IM versus email. Do you have any tips for them on how to start that conversation?
that's a great question. I think it depends on the culture of your workplace. So like there are various like tenets that we have at 10 Forward that I explain sometimes to people who are not in tech and they're like shocked. Like we avoid meetings in the afternoon and every meeting has to have an agenda. And if it doesn't have a posted agenda, you don't have to show up and things like that. And so for us, it's pretty easy to just say like, hey, everyone keeps emailing me when things are important. You have my number, like call me. And everyone's like, okay, cool, we'll do that. That's not always the case at every company. So I would say, the idea is kind of like make it easy to say yes. So you could even talk about like, hey, I've started doing this inbox zero. I'm more productive. I'm not missing emails. Like this has been really good for me. I think we should try it as a company. And also I am much more likely to respond quickly if someone calls, and then you have to actually do it. If people actually try, you have to do it. So I think it's partially ignoring emergency emails, which can feel very,
Hard to do.
you gotta train people, right? So if you don't answer their emergency email, but when they call, you do answer right away, they're gonna learn without you even necessarily having to tell them that this is a better way to do it. So I think it's kind of a multi-tiered approach depending on what your culture is like and where you are in the hierarchy and all of those things. But
I think that's so good. One time we had a team too, and like a new group of people came together and we all sat down to like, what is the best way you communicate? Or like, how do you prefer? And something as little as that can go such a long way too.
mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We do the DISC profile specifically for workplace communication. We have everyone at 10 Forward do that. And like personality profiles, like literally are kind of junk science, like not to offend anyone who's like super into Enneagram. But it's just, they're not, humans are way too complex. So that being said, we do this one specifically for workplace communication because it helps people to think about for themselves, kind of like you said, how do you like to be communicated with? So like, I'm someone who loves small talk. I want to hear how your weekend was. I want to hear about your cats. I want to know what your nephew's up to. But I really hate when people don't make deadlines. It's like, those are two big things about me, how I communicate. Whereas other folks are like, I don't like small talk. Just like, I want to get down to business. I want to solve the problem. I want to figure it out. I don't want to talk about, my favorite kind of pie. And so having everyone at work do that means that before I go into meetings with people, I can look and see, oh yeah, okay, so they don't like small talk, but they do love feeling like their opinion is valued. So I'm going to try to focus on, those aspects. So yeah, I think that's a really great that y'all did that, because knowing how your colleagues like to communicate is just really important.
Yeah, it helps. Okay, I think our last question, I wanted to ask you about hybrid work. I know a bunch of companies, some are going back to the office while some people are still at home. Do you have any tips or advice for navigating that sort of hybrid space and making it work?
Yes.
I know it's a large question.
Yeah, so I was like, where do I want to go with this? So 10 Forward was hybrid before the pandemic. We were hybrid again this summer. Now with the current orders, we're kind of letting people again sort of do what feels comfortable for them. And if they want to be fully remote again for a while, like that's great, right? We want everyone to be safe. I think the main thing is setting clear boundaries. And so, and again, it depends on your culture, and it depends on, like we have we typically have a lot more junior employees on our team as well. So interns, apprentices, junior staff. And so really setting clear guidelines and expectations for like, when do we want you to be in the office? When don't we? What does it mean to have a flexible workplace? Because a lot of people are like, we're flexible. And then you try to use that and they're like, well, not flexible like that. And so I think, yeah, just having really strong guidelines, making sure people know who to talk to when, and then following through on them. So like one thing that I've had friends complain about is they're like, well, my manager told me that company policies, we can't do X, but my friend in this other department is totally allowed to do that. So making sure that you're applying all of those things consistently across the board and communicating changes, and then also asking people what they want. We sent out like 3 different polls to our staff and we only have 9 people, like, okay, we heard this, we have some follow-up, or like, how do people feel about these 2 different options, to really make sure that we were having business needs met, that also our staff heard, and that their needs and just their, desires preferences were taken into consideration. So.
Yeah, and just like keeping the communication going no matter where you are.
Yeah, and then being willing to change it too, right? Especially now, as it's kind of like up and down with like, is it safe to come in? Is it not safe to come in? Just making sure that people are and also feel safe, because psychological safety isn't the same as physical safety necessarily. So.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Hilary. I think that was our last question in there. If you guys want to get in touch with Hilary, she had her email on the past slide. There'll be, maybe you can leave it again in the comments, or your LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, I'll put my LinkedIn. That's probably better for like a Facebook like public.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry.
I mean, I did just have it a slide, so like really what's the difference, but spammers and stuff like that. So all right.
Cool.
So I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope you have a great rest of Forward Festival, and then we'll see everyone next month.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.